Old powers waken, shadows stir. An age of wonder and terror will soon be upon us. An age for gods and heroes.
The glass candles are burning, and you're listening to the Obsidian Nights Podcast. Hello, my sweet summer children. I'm back with the juice to get you through the long night. And on today's episode of Obsidian Nights Podcast, where we go through A Song of Ice and Fire chapter by chapter, today we are going to be covering Bran 6 of A Game of Thrones. And I have a special guest with me today. And my special guest is Jason. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself and let the people know where they can find you?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Jason. I go by J Snow on social media. You can find me on Twitter at JSNOW TFL because J Snow's already taken. And I have an ultra small YouTube channel called What's Left News and Analysis with J Snow, where I cover politics from a leftist perspective. So follow me there if you're interested in that kind of thing. And today I'm just here to talk about one of my favorite escapes, and happy to be here.
Awesome. I will leave your links in the description below.
Cool.
So today we're going to be covering Bran 6 of A Game of Thrones, and Bran 6 is a juicy one. So there's a lot going on with Robb Stark. Politically, we get like a really good look into Robb Stark and the Northern Army, the Westerosi politics, the Northern Lords. And this will be the last time that we hear from Robb Stark from anyone's POV other than his mother's, because every other time we're going to hear from Robb Stark is going to be from Catelyn's point of view going forward. So also in this chapter, we get some of the major themes of A Song of Ice and Fire. I also think this chapter is really heavy on the foreshadowing.
Definitely.
I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited. Like just hyping the chapter up is making me excited.
Right.
So when the chapter opens up, it says, the Karstarks came in on a cold, windy morning, bringing 300 horsemen and near 2,000 foot from their castle at the Carhold. The steel points of their pikes winked in the pale sunlight as the columns approached. A man went before them, pounding out a slow, deep-throated marching rhythm on a drum that was bigger than he was. Boom, boom, boom. Bran watched them come from a guard turret atop the outer wall, peering through Maester Lewin's bronze fair eye while perched on Hodor's shoulders. So Robb has called his banners, and the different houses have been arriving to Winterfell. And finally, the last house has come, and it's the Karstarks. So the Karstarks have arrived. Rickon Karstark arrives with his sons and his hosts. Robb is ready to march to war, but it's kind of like, wow, like, is Robb really ready for like such a responsibility? Like, he's a child. He's just a boy. And just a couple chapters ago, he was only fighting with like wooden swords. So it's kind of like,
yeah, they wouldn't even let him, spar with real steel like Joffrey wanted to.
Right. And now he's like going to war, and I'm just, it kind of gives me the chills. Like it's scary, definitely. Especially when later we'll talk about how it's kind of foreshadowed that the Starks leave and never come home.
Yeah, that's definitely throughout the whole chapter, and it's just like it's so ominous. Especially from Rickon's perspective, just not understanding and just seeing everyone leave and never come back.
Yeah. So Bran also talks about like old Nan saying that the Karstarks used to be Starks or had Stark blood in them. And he's like, they don't look like Starks to me. Like they don't look like Starks. But basically their house is an offshoot branch of House Stark. And the Karstarks and the Starks have married for centuries.
Yeah, but I found that interesting, like the way he said they didn't look like Starks, but then the way he describes them with fierce and face-covered beards and hair down to the shoulders and cloaks of skins and pelts. Like that sounds to me more of like what I would think of a first man or like the old Starks. Yeah. So it kind of like, I don't know, makes me wonder, like, did the Starks change at all? But if you look at the lineage that we know, they didn't really marry outside of the North, so I don't really know if that's anything.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that he doesn't think they look like him. They
Yeah.
look almost as when Bran has that Weirwood vision in Bran 3 of A Dance with Dragons. When he has that Weirwood vision of he sees tall men in male, fierce, and with beards and stuff. And he talks about he noticed their faces from the crypts.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
They sound just like that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like kind of like the same description.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it seems like the Karstarks are like the quintessential first men.
Maybe
like what you would think they would be, anyways.
Maybe the Starks are an offshoot of the Karstarks, and the history is just wrong because we have this thing in this chapter where Bran asks Maester Luwin, how many knights are with the Karstarks, or how many knights does Robb have? And Maester Luwin's like, it doesn't matter because the North worships the old gods and knights are named in the light of the seven. And like, it really makes me wonder about the timeline, because that Sam quote, he talks about the histories being inaccurate. He's like, because the stories like have knights in them before there were even knights. So there's knights in the histories before the Andals even came to Westeros, which when the Andals came to Westeros is when they brought their religion with them, which is the Faith of the Seven. So it doesn't make any sense when it comes to the actual timeline. Yeah.
And it's supposed to be muddy and messy, but there's definitely something going on there that we don't know. We're not supposed to.
Yeah, we're not. It's one of those things that if we knew, it would probably give too much away.
That's why I was interested in the prequel that got canceled, because it was set so far back in time that like maybe would give us a clearer picture. But
yeah, I do think that we're gonna get like more than just House of the Dragon. Yeah, like HBO is trying to build like a cinematic universe in Westeros. Like they paid George like a dump truck full of money to get like all the rights to Westeros, all the rights to all of his stories. And I feel like that prequel might come after, like we'll probably be in the nursing home when it comes. But I feel like he wants to kind of finish Winds of Winter and maybe Dream and have the White Walker storyline wrapped up in the books before he gives out what the deets are.
Yeah, because I think that is part of the reason why we don't know what's going on, because something about it would make what happens later too obvious.
Yeah. Another interesting part of this chapter is Bran. Bran wants to go out. He wants to go walking around, and Robb's like, I don't have anybody to guard you. And he talks about Robb wearing the face of the Lord. He talked about that about his dad too, about like he had the Lord's face on now. Yeah. Like these are two people. When they're the Lord, they're completely different. And you see that with Robb in this chapter. Like he's one way, and he's like that actually all through the books. He's one way when he's with Bran or when he's with Catelyn.
Yeah.
Than he is in front of his bannerman, which is, he
kind of has to be at this point.
Yeah.
Because like we were talking about, this is all new to him. So he pretty much has to fake it till he makes it. He doesn't really have a choice.
And they're not his friends. Like his bannermen aren't his friends. And actually like quite a few of them betray him.
Right.
So, and he's smart. Like Robb, to be so young, he's actually smart.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because like up to this point, we're told the North, like everyone loves the Starks, and we get like this picturesque interpretation of it, but it's not really like that. I mean, yes, the Starks are well loved and everything, but their bannermen aren't like loyal to the bone, as we soon find out. Yeah. And like you said, Bran, he wants to go out, but Robb, even though he just called all his bannermen. His castle is full with all his people, but he doesn't feel safe enough to let Bran out of the main castle. So he realizes it,
and he does. And another thing, like Bran and poor baby Rickon, like they don't want Robb to leave. They don't want Robb to leave, and like they know that it's imminent that he's gonna be leaving, because Bran's kind of like, well, like how long before he leaves, because like, I'm gonna miss my brother. Like he prays like to the old gods, like to protect his brother and stuff. But Maester Luwin's kind of like, well, they have to leave because they're gonna eat us out of a house and home in here. Like they gotta go. They gotta go. Right. Like and I think like at this time the war has already started. Like the Lannisters are already fighting in the Riverlands against the River Lords. And I think Wyman Manderly is sending his sons with an army up to Moat Caitlin. So I think like they know that this is that it's imminent that he's leaving. I mean, Maester Luwin basically says it like he has to go soon or not at all.
Yeah. And like they even talk about it later, or maybe right after this, about him leaving, and if he should go or send somebody else. But even if he did send somebody else, as soon as they get the news from Ned's death, like he would leave anyways. So it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Even if he didn't send someone now, he would be leaving soon anyways.
Yeah. He talks about that. Like that is a big thing. Not even in this chapter, but even in this chapter, but in the following chapter as well. Like Robb should have sent somebody else to be the commander of the army, and Robb should have stayed at Winterfell. But I'm kind of like, I think it was smart for him to be the commander. I mean, look what happened at Winterfell anyway.
Right. And then and as soon as when he does split his army in half and gives command to somebody else, look how that turns out.
Right. Yeah, it's like yeah.
Yeah, no good choices.
He made the best choice he could, but Catelyn also tells him too. But at the same time, like if you can't ask these men to go to war for you if you're not going to war yourself. True. Like how can you, like you can't do that. So Bran wants to visit the Godswood. Ever since his fall, Bran has spent a lot of time in the Godswoods. He also says he spent a lot of time dreaming. Yeah. And all of that. But it's like, also I love how the Starks just like mosey around with their direwolves. Yeah. Like so Bran's like on this basket, like getting pulled by Hodor, and then he whistles for summer and like all the fucking horses flip out, the dogs start barking and stuff. So I love that. I love those scenes. Because like that reminds me of like an awkward kid. Like I was an awkward kid. Yeah. So I could just see like see like because they were awkward.
And they were just snickering at him too. So it's kind of like a little payback. Yeah, like he comes running up. Yeah.
Here you go. Mock this. And then this big ass fierce direwolf comes out like, yeah, bitch, what's good? So Bran finds peace in the Godswood. He says like Winterfell is a sea of chaos, but the Godswood always brings him peace. And Bran like flashes back, like he's thinking about, like he's praying for Robb and Theon. Please make it so Robb won't go away. He prayed softly. He moved his hand through the cold water, sending ripples across the pool. Please make him stay. Or if he has to go, bring him home safe, and mother and father and the girls, and make it so Rickon understands. So not only like, could you imagine these kids are so young.
Yeah.
It's to be going through so much traumatic shit.
Yeah, it's insane. And then they like, I know Bran does, and I think even Jon does later. They even think to themselves like they should be handling it better because they're almost men grown. But it's like, no, you're a child and you're doing awesome. Like
when they say shit like Rickon is 3, he can't be a boy forever. Like what? Right. What? He's 3. And I mean, he acts like a baby, but he is a baby. And he's going through so much shit.
Yeah, it's the only way he knows how to process it. I mean, he's lashing out. Like they say, he goes in turns crying and lashing out.
Yeah, he's ever since he learned Robb was riding off to war, Rickon had been wild as a winter storm. weeping and angry by turns. He'd refused to eat, cried, and screamed for most of the night, even punched old Nan when she tried to sing him to sleep. And the next day, he'd vanished. Robb had sent half the castle searching for him, and when at last they found him down in the crypts, Rickon had slashed at them with a rusted iron sword he'd snatched from a dead king's hand, and Shaggy Dog had come slavering out of the darkness like a green-eyed demon. The wolf was near as wild as Rickon.
Yeah, I love that line. It's so descriptive.
Yeah, and it's like, but how do you expect him to act? Like, his mother's gone, his father's gone, his sisters are gone. Like, he's been, even though he's still in Winterfell, everyone around him is gone, and his brother, who he's been clinging to, is about to leave.
Right. And just going back to that little prayer Bran said, like, everything he asked for, he doesn't get. And like the last thing it says is make it so Rickon understands, like, and he obviously doesn't. And so I'm not sure how much of a how much we'll get from Rickon the character. Like, he seems more like a plot device. But when he does come back, like, what is his mindset going to be? How's he going to feel towards his family, you know?
Yeah, because he's so full of rage.
Right.
And basically, by the time he does come back, he would have been with the Skagosi longer than he's been with the Starks. And
in that one line that you just read, where they finally find him, I don't know, this might be a little tinfoily, and it may have had a better chance of being true with the 5-year gap in mind. But it says everyone was searching, no one could find Rickon, everyone's searching for him. And then when they do find him, it says Rickon slashed him with a rusty red iron sword, and he snatched from a dead king's hand. So then, since there's so much foreshadowing in here, I was like, okay, and since it was so descriptive, I was like, all right, well, maybe that's foreshadowing something. And I was thinking, all right, well, they just found him, so maybe it relates to when Rickon comes back to the story, and then the rusted iron sword could also be a red sword and a dead king's hand. Well, there is a king with a red sword that could be about to die by Winterfell.
Stannis.
Right. So like I said, I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah. So maybe the next time we see him will be maybe for the battle to retake Winterfell, and maybe Stannis is leading the charge and falls, and it looks like they're going to not going to make it, but then here comes Rickon with Skagosi army, and he picks up the sword and leads the way. But he might need to be 5 years older to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Yeah. He's wild enough. Like, I honestly think that Rickon's going to do some crazy warg shit.
Me too.
With Shaggy Dog.
Yeah, honestly, I think Rickon has the potential to be the best, like, pure warg, and maybe the second best skin changer.
And
depending on
Shaggy Dog is definitely a rare wolf.
Yeah.
He's a very different wolf. He has more, I would say he's more similar to Ghost than to Summer, or Lady, or Nymeria, or Grey Wing.
I think is Shaggy Dog the one with green eyes?
Yeah, he's the one with green eyes.
Yeah, and then Ghost is red, and the others I think are all gold. So that would make them too similar that way too, to have like the green seer eyes.
Definitely. So I definitely think there's something going on when it comes to Shaggy Dog and Rickon, and I feel like Rickon's wildness comes from him not understanding what's happening.
Yes.
And also comes from him, like I feel like he's having wolf dreams as well. And he's not understanding what's happening there either.
True.
And I talked about this on the Direwolf City Rickon Wins a Winner stream about Rickon. When you're so young and you have these superhuman powers, like wargs and green sight and shit like that, is like you don't know how to control it. Like, you don't have the brain capacity to understand what's happening, let alone control it. So I think a lot of times when we see Rickon as like this wild Thornberry type of character, it's actually like he just doesn't understand what's happening, and he doesn't have the brain capacity to control what's happening to him.
And exactly. And I think that being so young, I think that'll actually could make him go further with it, because he doesn't have those natural barriers. Because like even Bran is still young and he still does some fucked up shit, but he realizes it to a point, you know what I mean? And like he knows some of the stuff is not right, but Rickon is not going to know that. He's just going to do what he can do, you know?
Right. Because he has no understanding at all of what's going on. So
yeah, he's just a wild man, wild boy. I don't know.
Yeah. So who's your favorite Great Lord of Northern Lord? Who's your favorite Northern Lord?
I think Manderley is definitely very interesting.
Oh God, I love him.
Yeah, I need to know more of what his actual plan is, but I definitely like him.
When he says that Frey, he would have just grown up to be a Frey. I was like, bars! Oh my God!
Exactly.
But I asked you that because I really like the Great John. I really like House Umber. I really like the Great John. And this is like our real introduction to the Great John, but not only like the Great John, but like Robb being as stone-faced and cool as a cucumber. So basically, like all these lords are coming to Robb and they're demanding like things from him, like put me in front of testing him. Put me in front of this one. Give me the command. No, give me the command. And I feel like it's kind of fucked up. It's kind of fucked up that they're testing him like this, but he excels at it. So like the whole interchanging conversation between the Great John and Robb, to me, like just shows he knows what the fuck he's doing.
Right. And all the different lords, like they all use different tactics on him too. So he has to be like versatile in his reactions.
Yeah, because what is it? Lord Serwyn just brings his daughter.
The daughter, yeah.
So he's trying to get his daughter married. And he's like, I'm just bringing her to cook with me. And Robb's like, and Theon's telling Robb, like, she's going to be in your bed.
Yeah, he was right about that probably.
So the fight between, go ahead.
I was just say right before we get to the fight, one of the testings is I forget who Lord Hornwood brings up hunting rights north of the ridge and talks about dam on the White Knife, and it just shows that there was conflict and problems brewing there already between the Boltons and the Hornwoods and the Manderleys.
Yeah, that is interesting that there's like we know about the Grand Northern Conspiracy, but there was already some shit going on. There was already some shit going on between the Starks and the Boltons, like in the histories, but not recently. But it's funny because Robb, being a 15-year-old boy, gets thrown these things like you're saying about them wanting land and like wanting these things, and Robb just is like, Bran says Robb answered each of them with cool courtesy, much as father might have, and somehow he bent them to his will. So Robb's like, he's not stupid.
No.
But they get to this fight with the Lord Umber.
Yeah.
It says, when Lord Umber, who was called the Great John by his men and stood as tall as Hodor and twice as wide, threatened to take his forces home if he was placed behind the Hornwoods or the Serwyns in the order of the march, Robb told him he was welcome to do so. And when we are done with the Lannisters, he promised, scratching Greywind behind the ear, we will march back north, root you out of your keep, and hang you for an oath breaker. And then like the Great John kind of flips out and like he fucks up Mullen. And then it says, yet Robb only said a quiet word, and in a snarl, in the blink of an eye, Lord Umber was on his back, his sword spinning on the floor 3 feet away, and his hand dripping blood where Greywind had bitten off 2 fingers. My Lord Father taught me that it was death to bear steel against your liege lord, Robb said. But doubtless you only meant to cut my meat. Like Bran says, Bran's bowels went to water. Like Bran's about to piss himself, but Rob admits like later that he's very scared.
Yeah, he was too, but he was able to keep his composure.
Yeah, he and Rob is just like able to like wear that face of the Lord.
Yeah, the Lord's face.
But the conversations between Bran and Rob at night are like some of my favorite because that's when Rob is the most vulnerable.
I was gonna say, like, this is one of my favorite portions involving Rob, period. This is his talk with Bran, where he's just talks to him as a brother and not as the Lord.
Yeah.
And he opens up to him,
And like confesses his fears. I was scared he was gonna kill me. I thought he was gonna kill me. Did you see the way he threw down Hal? and then he also talks about Roose Bolton. Yeah. And this is so this shows Rob's genius right here. He's like, gods, I was scared. And the great John's not the worst of them, only the loudest. Lord Roose never says a word. He only looks at me. And all I can think of is that room they have in the Dreadfort where the Boltons hang the skins of their enemies.
Yeah, that's
in the very next
there.
Yeah, in the very next chapter, he kind of tells his mom too, or in the Catelyn chapter, the next chapter we see Robin where he's at Moat Caitlin. He tells his mom bro is scary. He's talking about Roose Bolton, and it's I swear the vibes are never off. That's one thing. When I meet somebody, I feel like I pick up on their vibe right away, and I feel like if I had met Roose Bolton, I would have vibe checked him at the door. Get the fuck away from me.
Kind of makes you wonder why he did pick him to lead his army, the second half of his army, when he split it.
Yeah. Maybe because he wanted him away from him.
Yeah. You can't blame him there.
Get the fuck away from me.
but this part's actually the second piece of foreshadowing with of a possible Bolton betrayal, because earlier on they talk about one of the Bolton's men stabs a Serwyn men in outside in the Wintertown outside of Winterfell, and that parallels when Theon loses the castle, loses Winterfell to Ramsay. Ramsay's forces take on what's his name, Sir Roderick and Clay Serwyn, and there's a bunch of Serwyn men there, and they got. I think they do stab the Serwyn boy who's there.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Another interesting part about this is the rumor mill of Westeros is so crazy. They keep getting story, different stories. It says King Robert was
little
dead.
Bits of truth.
Yeah. King Robert was dead at father's hands. The Baratheons had laid siege to King's Landing. Lord Eddard had fled south with the king's wicked brother Renly. Arya and Sansa had been murdered by the Hound. Mother had killed Tyrion the Imp and hung his body from the walls of River Run. It's just different. They even have one person that says Rhaegar Targaryen had returned from the dead, and he had a host at Dragonstone. So but then they get the letter from Sansa.
Sansa.
Yeah, they get the letter from Sansa, and it makes Rob so angry just thinking about it. Rob was like, damn her, what's wrong with the girl? And this is one of my favorite parts of this chapter. Bran felt all cold inside. She lost her wolf, he said, weakly, remembering the day when 4 of his father's guardsmen had returned from the south with Lady's bones. Summer and Greywind and Shaggy Dog had begun to howl before they crossed the drawbridge, in voices drawn and desolate. Beneath the shadow of the first keep was an ancient lychard, its headstone spotted with pale lichen, where the old kings of winter had laid their faithful servants. It was there they buried Lady, while her brothers stalked between the graves like restless shadows. She had gone south, and only her bones had returned. I think this is major foreshadowing that Sansa's going to die.
Oh, wow.
She had gone south, and her bones had only returned. So I have this theory that I've had ever since the beginning of my channel, that the Starks mirror their direwolves. Their lives and deaths followed their direwolves. I feel that if it doesn't mean she's gonna die, it means she's never coming back to Winterfell. But I feel like it is foreshadowed that Sansa will die in the place of Arya, like Lady died in the place of Nymeria.
Okay.
Like
I kind of like that.
I won't go into like the whole theory because there's tons of foreshadowing on. I just need to do like a whole video on that.
I was just gonna say, you haven't done one yet?
I think I did one brushing over it on all when I did the one on all the direwolves called Direwolves in the Snow like a couple years ago.
Okay, yeah, I seen that one.
But I haven't done one with like all the book foreshadowing, because in that one I used the show foreshadowing. Like, okay, so Rob. So far the only direwolves dead in the books are Lady and then Rob, Greywind. But Greywind's death is the exact kind of death that Rob has.
Rob's. Yeah, like to a T.
To a T. And in the show, Rickon, when Shaggy Dog dies, Rickon dies. When Summer dies, Bran doesn't die, but he comes back as like this person that says he's not Bran anymore. And there's like this there's no shred of Bran in this person.
Right.
So I actually, in the books, I don't think Summer's going to die.
I was just thinking when you said that, mirroring the direwolves and the Stark kids, like there's, I don't know if I believe it, but a theory that Ghost is actually dead. That's part of the reason why he's so silent. Mm-hmm. And if that is true, then that would mirror Jon, because he dies and comes back. But
Ghost cannot die. I will fucking scream.
Well, no, I'm saying if that theory is true, he's already dead, but he's just a reanimated whatever.
Well, I think all of the direwolves are creatures that are living their second lives in the direwolves.
Oh, okay.
Because the direwolves have red eyes. Well, Ghost has red eyes. Shaggy Dog has green eyes. And then the other four have yellow eyes. And there's this quote by Bloodraven is like, the way the children were marked was the children had eyes as yellow as the golden sun. But every once in a while, like a great one among them was born with green or red eyes. And that was the mark of a green seer.
You think they're all children of the forest or green seers? Okay.
I think they're all children of the forest, like that have either skin changed into the wolves permanently or living a second life in the wolves.
That could actually work, because going on with another Bran chapter, when he's in Bloodraven's cave, one of the things that has always perplexed me, when he sees the other green seers who open their eyes, what the hell are they doing? Like, I thought they could, I mean, they could be operating the others, but if this theory is correct, then they could be the direwolves.
Yes, which would make shit a whole lot more interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
But to go further on to what Bran was saying, he talks about like the people that have went south and never came back. Yeah. He talks about his grandfather, Brandon Stark, Lyanna went south, and he's like, and now father had gone south with Arya and Sansa and Jory and Hullen and Fat Tom and the rest. And we know that Fat Tom and Jory and Hullen are all dead. Arya's on the run. Ned's gonna die. So it's kind of like, and he's like, they've all gone and they hadn't come back, and now Rob meant to go, and we know Rob's not going to come back. So it's either that like some curse is going to be broken about the Starks going south and not coming back, or Sansa's going to bite it. And I know a lot of people think like I just hate Sansa, so I'm just like, thinking of ways for Sansa to die, and that's not the case. That's not. I actually do like book Sansa. It's just that show bitch I can't stand.
Well, right, yeah, and like I can't stand Sansa in the beginning of the books, but like towards the but she grows, and by the end, like the sample chapter, I like that chapter.
Elaine, yes, love it.
So like I don't like hate her, but I hate some shit she did, but
yeah. So Bran is like, if Rob has to go, watch over him, and then he is in there with the old gods, and Osha comes in. Yeah. And I love Osha as a character. I think she does a lot for Bran as a giving him a little bit more character depth. I feel like she's a mentor to Bran.
Definitely.
So like Bran is gonna have many mentors like throughout his journey, but one of his first mentors is Maester Luwin. And Maester Luwin is like old and grounded. He's very logical thinking, very realistic, there is no magic, and the stories are just stories. Like he's a maester and he means
Set in his
well.
ways. Yeah, he does.
But everything he says to Bran it gets contradicted as the story goes on by Bran's other mentors, Osha, Jojen, Bloodraven. And I think like this is a subtle hint that the maesters like really know fuck all when it comes to like magic and the possibilities of the world that they live in. With that said, Osha brings up the real threat. And that's one of the major themes of this story is the Northern Lords not getting the bigger picture. Not the Northern Lords, but just all the great lords of Westeros. Everybody in Westeros fighting each other, killing each other.
Worried about the wrong things.
Yeah, worried about the wrong thing. Osha says it like he's marching the wrong way. Rob's marching the wrong way.
Definitely.
And Bran never gets to tell him that because Maester Luwin's like, don't fucking bother him with that. Like he's got enough shit going on.
Yeah.
Leave him alone with that.
And at this point, like we were talking about earlier, he doesn't really have much of a choice. He's just kind of swept up in a momentum of everything else. But yeah, he's definitely, if they only knew.
Yeah. And Osha kind of tells him, like about the old gods, and like north of the wall, the old gods are the only gods that exist, and they're her gods too. And she was like, they're talking to you, don't you hear them? And he's like, it's the wind. He was like, who sends the wind if not the gods? And like Bran says, like he tries to listen and he feels like he can hear sadness.
And earlier, like we're talking about, he's been dreaming a lot. Like I'm wondering, I mean, I'm sure he's been laying around, so he doesn't have much else to do, but is it Bloodraven or whoever reaching out to him and sending him dreams and trying to talk to him and drawing him towards the godswoods and all that?
Yeah. I mean, it could be that. I think that it's probably it's likely that, but I also think it's a mix between wanting to be in the peace and quiet of the godswood because he's been through such a traumatic experience, and also like he doesn't want people pointing at him and mocking him and like just looking at him. I feel like he likes the alone isolation of the godswood.
Yeah, I agree, and especially now that the castle's full of strangers, so it's probably even if Bloodraven wasn't messing with them or whoever, he probably would still be hanging out there.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to say, like where Osha says, "Beyond the wall, they are the only gods." Like when you hear the old gods, what do you think of?
The weirwood trees.
Okay, because like there's the weirwood trees, so like that would be like the green seers and like the hive mind, like. But then you also have Ned's nameless gods of like the stone and forest and stream, which seem to be separate, but I guess they don't necessarily. But then it seems definitely to be different is Craster's gods, and who are probably the others.
Yeah.
So it just seems weird because like it doesn't seem that concrete of who they are, but she says they are the only gods.
Well, we know that they're not the only gods because the world of ice and fire tells us about like a crab god north of the wall and like a god that lives underground north of the wall. Like there's different gods. And also like when you actually think about the gods of the forest and stream and stone and all that, like all of it is the children of the forest. The children of the forest are basically manipulating through the trees. So if you have a green seer in the tree and you're praying to the tree and you ask the green seer to do something and the green seer does it,
Okay.
I think
that
it's
makes
more
sense.
intricate. It's more intricate than that, but it seems like a little trickery on the part of the Children of the Forest. Because if we believe the Children of the Forest are the ones that created the White Walkers, then the Children of the Forest are the ones that created the cold gods that Craster worships.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so they are all kind of related, if even if not exactly the same, they are pretty much the same.
Yeah, I feel like it's all one. It's all one power source that
Okay.
these people are using, and I don't know. I do know that the Children of the Forest have told Bran. I think Leaf told Bran like that their ancestors live in the trees for like
Yeah.
like once they die, they go into the tree.
Yeah.
And they live there, like they're in it. Their spirit never dies. But basically, Osha is trying to give some knowledge to Robb or to Bran to tell Robb, and Bran's
Right.
like not listening. And they talk about like giants and all of those things. But she also says like, the cold winds are rising. And men go out from their fires and never come back. Or if they do, they're not men no more, but only whites with blue eyes and cold black hands. And I feel like the chapter directly before this.
Right. Yeah. I just listened to the last episode.
Yeah, that was the John chapter where he's like, the whites came back. And then, so Bran doesn't have privilege to that information, but Bran knows about the guy that his father has killed.
Right.
And Bran believes her. Believes her.
Like, and I'm kind of like, I know Lewin is set in his ways and all that, but it just still kind of surprises me that he just poo-poos it so quickly, considering that like she's not the first one to bring this up. Like it's been coming up, and she wasn't just fleeing south with other wildlings. She was with other knights, brothers of the Night's Watch, but still it doesn't ring any alarm bells for them.
Yeah, I think Maester Lewin is just like so old and set in his ways and cynical, and like he doesn't have the ability to believe in those things anymore if he ever had it. And I feel like when you are at the Citadel, when you train at the Citadel, I feel like the only maesters, like the maesters that do believe in that kind of shit, would be Marwyn or Qyburn.
Yeah.
And they're basically considered wizards, wizards and fools and shit like that.
Yeah.
But so that night, Bran like goes to talk to Robb, but Robb is having dinner with like the lords privately in his solar. So Bran has to like host the other people in the Great Hall, and one of them called Bran broken. Broken inside as well as out, too craven to take his own life. Broken, Bran thought bitterly as he clutched his knife. Is that what he was now? Bran the Broken? I don't want to be broken, he whispered fiercely to Maester Lewin, who'd been seated to his right. I want to be a knight. And then Maester Lewin's always trying to be like, well, you get to be a maester. They're knights of the mind. And I can like feel like Bran is kind of, if I was Bran, I'd have been burning up if he said that shit. Like, did you hear what the fuck I said? I don't want to be no fucking master book reader. I want to be a knight. But Bran says, I want to learn magic. The crow promised me that I would fly. And Maester Lewin like sighs at that. Like, I could teach you this. I could teach you that. Healing, herb lore.
But he's going to have to go to a different master to learn those.
Right. And that's where he's going to go.
Yep.
And he says it like the children could. The children of the forest. And then he like that makes him think of Osha. And Bran tells Lewin what Osha said. And he was like, the wildling woman could give old Nan lessons in telling tales. Like, Maester Lewin is not for it.
No.
At all. So 2 days later, Robb is about to leave. It says, 2 days later, as a red dawn broke across the windswept sky, Bran found himself in the yard beneath the gatehouse, strapped atop Dancer, as he said his farewells to his brother. "You are the Lord of Winterfell now," Robb told him. He was mounted on a shaggy gray stallion. His shield hung from the horse's side, wood band with iron white and gray, and on it the snarling face of the direwolf. His brother wore gray chainmail over bleached leathers, sword and dagger at his waist, a fur-trimmed cloak across his shoulders. "You must take my place as I took father's until we come home." And it's so sad because Rickon won't come. Rickon like freaks out, and Robb says like, "You can't be a baby forever. He's almost 4."
Yeah.
Like, bro, like seriously. But the saddest part of this chapter is when Bran says, like, when Robb's leaving with this whole host behind him, like that's Bran's dream. That's what Bran wants to be a knight riding off to war. Like that's his dream. And now like all his dreams are shattered literally when his legs got shattered. And he says they would never cheer for him that way. He realized with a dull ache. He might be the Lord of Winterfell while his brother and father were gone, but he was still Bran the Broken. He could not even get off his own horse except to fall. And then he says, when the distant cheers had faded to silence and the yard was empty at last, Winterfell seemed deserted and dead. Bran looked around at the faces of those who remained, women and children and old men and Hodor. The huge stable boy had a lost and frightened look to his face. "Hodor?" he said sadly. "Hodor," Bran agreed, wondering what it meant. And that's how the chapter ends. And if that ain't some foreshadowing, I don't know what is. First of all, I think the show Bran the Broken title is actually what Bran is going to be called.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially in this chapter, it's foreshadowed pretty heavily. And and just overall, like this, especially this last part, but the whole chapter, like Bran is realizing a lot of harsh truths.
Yes,
and, like he's being forced to come to terms with them.
Yeah, and it's a lot. Like, keep in mind, he's only, 6, 7?
Yeah, I think 7, maybe 8, but yeah, not more than that.
Like, he's just a little kid, and, like, not only has his life changed as far as, like, his parents being gone, his brother going to war, like, he can't even walk anymore. So, he's like, it's traumatic.
It's a lot to process for anyone, let alone a child.
Yeah, but that is Bran 6. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty good. It's a lot of politics, lots of foreshadowing.
Yeah, lots of setup.
Yeah, lots of setup. I feel like the big focus is on the politics, like the lords all getting together and testing Robb, and Robb getting ready to go to war and see if he's cut out for it. We're going to see if Ned did a good job raising him.
Yeah, I mean, he did, but like we were saying, he's making the best choices he can, but it's just he doesn't. There's just no real good choices.
Right.
But he is learning. He's growing.
Yeah, I mean, I just keep thinking like he's a 15-year-old. Me at 15.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been. I would have fucked that army right into the ground. Like it wouldn't have been. We would have had no wins.
Yeah, I don't even know what I would have done.
I personally would have put somebody else in charge.
Yeah, or at least like relied on someone, like have someone like there by me. Like
I'd have put Sir Roderick in charge.
Yeah,
like I'm not ready to go to war. Yeah. But I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to thank everyone for listening, and I will see you guys next week.